Yeah, I got nuked for the first stream, so going back on right now.
By the way, how about I have the
Try to get some
courtesy
people in here.
of um of not advocating for wars that I'm not willing to fight in myself. That's my professional courtesy. But I think
that is a much better standard.
Well, who spends? I mean, what type of person? And look,
but he kind of went away, didn't he? I mean, Douglas Murray was like, I took him seriously. By the way, I knew him well, and I thought he had, there were things about him that I felt sorry for him because of them. But in general, he was smart, and I never had a problem with him at all. Had a couple fun dinners with him. That debate, which you were proclaimed the loser of by a lot of people, I think that just destroyed his life.
Yeah, well, again, it was like no one except the people who already had made up their mind that Israel is the greatest country ever. No one except them thought that he won the debate. A few of them seemed to celebrate that. The comment section under the video was just torching him. Like every regular person went, oh, he just destroyed himself. And then I will say, a lot of people, including some prominent people who you, listener, know, including Charlie Kirk, by the way, texted me after that debate and were like, yo, dude, he just destroyed his credibility, or like that was crazy that he came at you like that. I had people, like this, whatever, I won't name all of them because I don't want to give out private information. Maybe I shouldn't have. I mentioned that about Charlie Kirk because Candace months back had called on me to release whatever private communications I have that might be relevant. And I thought one of the things was relevant was that he said after the debate that he largely agreed with me after the Douglas Murray debate,
he certainly did. I talked to him on this topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did think that was relevant into where his mind state was. But other people, I think a lot of people kind of expected him to be like, they were like, okay, Dave, you've been blowing through these debates, but this is the best guy on the other side. So he's going to come really give
British
you a challenge.
Accent. So there was no chance that
that's
you
right.
as someone from Brooklyn was going to beat him.
Well, I guess that's the first advantage that he had. But, there's a weird thing where, again, kind of back to what I was saying before, you see this thing where, so after that debate happens, I have this huge groundswell of support from people. Then Donald Trump tweets out, you got to go get Douglas Murray's new book, 2 days after the debate or something like that. And I thought there was an interesting parallel between that and when Donald Trump just tweeted the other day about how great, not the one to watch the show, but he tweeted last week about how wonderful Mark Levin is and how everyone arguing with him is awful or something like that. And if you look on Twitter, not saying Twitter is everything, but it's one little, glimpse into things. I mean, Mark Levin gets ratioed by random people. Not even like you or Megyn Kelly or someone like that. I'm saying some random guy will just call Mark Levin an idiot, and way more people like his tweet than Mark Levin's tweet. He's out there, he's feuding it with Megyn Kelly, and he's calling you and me every name in the book. And then the entire audience is just going with us. And then Trump comes out and says, we're all in.
So I saw that when Trump tweeted that about you read, Douglas Murray's dumb books. And I kind of willfully ignored it because I was so focused, because I like Trump, but also because I was so focused on the Iran thing and just have to prevent a war with Iran.
That's more important.
Well, I don't know, though. I mean, that was foreshadowing that actually there was a lot of control. Why would the president of the United States be promoting Douglas Murray, who, is not even American, and he's totally discredited? Why would the president be promoting him?
Well, doing Mark Levin is much worse. I mean, look, Douglas Murray, I do think he was ridiculous and he kind of made an ass out of himself in that debate. But Mark Levin has gone to a level of retardation that I've never seen out of, listen, I was never I was somewhat impressed by the first generation of neocons. I think that,
I worked for them.
Yeah, well, I know.
Yeah, I was one.
But I think, well,
sorry.
No, but I mean like Leo Strauss and Irving Kristol and those guys, right? And but then I always thought I always kind of went, if you remember the at Fox News, now he wasn't really on your show a lot, but if you remember the reverence people used to have for Charles Krauthammer, they would all talk about him, to his face, they'd be like, the genius is here. And then I'd be like, I've never heard him say anything interesting ever. I just don't
agree more.
I don't know but all of those guys, so I was always
one thing I'll say about Charles, who I knew really well, he was a very nice man. And he was a nice man because he had to reckon with being paralyzed
Yeah.
from the chest down from medical school, and so he just had a
Hey,
perspective on
guys,
life.
if you
I
could
used to
do me a
spend hours
favor,
talking to him, and I knew his wife.
like the
and
stream,
I really
share
liked
it,
him as a man. His
comment it,
views were,
since I just got nuked.
impossible to defend if you cared
Let's
about the
try to get
Nazis.
some people
right.
back in here.
But anyway, I
I'd
guess
appreciate
with
it
all of them, I
very
was
much.
never particularly intellectually impressed with any of them.
Drop a
No,
If you want
comment,
to see,
something,
by the way, if you want to
anything.
see, if you've never watched, man, Scott Horton debating Bill Kristol at the
Well,
Soho
that's
Forum,
unfair.
it was you really exposed just how much Bill Kristol has nothing, no knowledge, no argument, nothing. He literally, I've never seen it happen before. He threw in the towel in the debate. Essentially, he literally at one point, Scott makes some argument. There was like a back and forth section, and Scott makes some argument, and he goes, well, we just have fundamentally different worldviews. And you're like, yeah, that's why you're debating.
But
you
Bill-
have to make an argument. And then
Bill will never explain what his worldview
well, right.
is.
And then in his closing, there was still like 3 minutes on the clock, and he just stopped. Anyway, I say all of this to say
he doesn't care though.
I've
because it
seen
doesn't
some
matter.
dumb arguments from neocons over the years. I have never seen anyone go full blown Mark Levin the way he goes. Like it is. He's literally just a ranting old man yelling insults unattached to any argument at all. Like his whole show is just like, yeah, this little punk wants to come and talk to me, you little fascist. Like, it's like, what is this, dude? Like, and so there is something about Donald Trump promoting that's like several levels worse than promoting Douglas Murray.
No, but it's so then you have to ask like, well, what actually is it? It's not designed to win people over. It's designed to increase hatred, anti-Semitism, by the way. Absolutely. I mean, if you were, whoever Mark thinks he's working for, the Israelis, I guess, you would look at this and say, this is not helping us. Don't do this.
Yes.
Get some articulate, decent, hot woman on there to make the case or whatever. You do a marketing thing. Yeah. This is anti-marketing. This is designed to repel people. So why would you want that? I don't know the answer, but it's clearly true. Second,
the answer is because if they're gonna call everybody an anti-Semite, they need to turn them into anti-Semites. So they are trying to make people say stupid shit about the Israeli government, about Bibi, about the religion, and then they can call you an anti-Semite and have a reason to do it. That's why they do this.
His relationship with the president is bizarre. You think Trump likes that? There was a moment at some Stop Anti-Semitism event of some kind, or Hanukkah celebration, or some Jewish themed White House event where Trump was there with Mark Levin, and Levin comes over and puts his arm around the president's neck and pulls him in. Now, I know Trump well. I mean, I wouldn't like that, and I'm not even the president or a germaphobe.
Yeah.
What is that? And under normal circumstances, Trump would never put up with that. You're doing the dominance move over the president of the United States.
And over Donald Trump.
Are you
not just the
joking?
president, but Donald Trump, the most dominant alpha male guy.
That's a dominance
who does that
move.
to other people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even Trump, who is very much about dominance, obviously, most powerful men are, Trump would never throw his arm around someone and give him a headlock like that.
No.
Do that.
He'll pull you in while he shakes your hand.
100%.
Or he'll do the thing. What did he do at one of the G7 meetings or whatever, where he cuts in front of some other world leader? But like there are, by the way, this is another thing that I am totally
breaking the rules, dude.
But I'm oblivious to this thing. But this is, as you said, powerful men are like this,
Yes,
where there's like alpha moves, like taking your thing and just make it, like whatever. Like if you have a little thing of peanuts here that you're eating, and I just reach in and take, you know what I mean? Like, but to do that to Donald Trump, I understand. I'm not trying to make too much of a little thing.
No, it's not a
but
little
that
thing.
was
It's not
there
a
was
little
something
thing.
symbolic, and then proclaims him the first Jewish president.
You got to think
Very strange.
that Trump, never said this to me, but just knowing him, you got to think he's filled with rage. Someone doing that to him.
Well, look,
But he puts up with it anyway. But why would you do that to him? So if you want to exert influence over someone who's powerful, like there's a way to do it. But the last way to do it is to be like, I'm in charge here, just so you know.
Yeah.
I'm more powerful than the president of the United States. That's what Levin is saying, and Trump is putting up with it. This is it's a form of sadomasochism, but it also reveals like the true architecture of power in a way that's like, what?
Yeah. Well, I think
what is that?
Well, here, I'll say this, and I'm just to preface this, I'm not saying anything other than what I'm saying. I'm not implying something that I don't know any more than this, and maybe you know more than I do, but I will say, people used to say when Donald Trump was first rising to his political career in 2016 when he was running, when he was first president, I remember liberals used to always say that he's dog whistling bigotry.
Yeah.
And, we always thought this was always like a dog whistle. But it's like a thing where you kind of, first of all, it's kind of weird because you're like, well, then wouldn't you not hear it if it's a dog whistle? Because wouldn't only the bigots hear it? Isn't that the idea? Also, that seems like a very convenient way of saying, even though there's nothing I can actually point to that you said, he's also racist. But what I always thought was that what Donald Trump did was he would very often stoke or give a wink and a nod to conspiracies.
Oh, big time.
He went out there about Obama's birth certificate. He obviously called out the whole Russiagate thing, which was a legit conspiracy to unseat the sitting president.
Was the Q thing?
The Q thing. Yeah. He'd float out the election being stolen, but all the witch hunt, and of course now with Epstein, when it's not really it is a conspiracy, but it's a legitimate one. But he's saying, it's there's a Democratic hoax. He is very quick to any time it will help him look good to be like, it's a conspiracy against me. Never once with Butler. Never once. And it's kind of crazy, man. Like, we have like no information. They haven't even like attempted to give us a national story that puts a little bow on top of like who this guy was or what happened, how there was such a security failure that could allow a sniper 130 yards away to get a clean shot at a former president and current candidate's head. Just kind of no internet history, can't get into his phones. He wanted to kill anyone he could. That's all. Nothing to see here. And it's just a little bizarre to me that you would think, like all other things making sense, you would just think you would hear Donald Trump going, they tried to kill me. They tried to do this. They tried to do, but
he doesn't say anything about
days afterward, he just thanked the Secret Service for what a great job they did. And I don't know what any of that means.
Well, I know a lot about it. And I'll just say this, which we said publicly, is I got a call from somebody who said, I've got a lot of material from the gunman. I'm not disputing he was the gunman, by the way. He seems like the gunman. The question is, like, was he working in concert with anyone else? Were there other people involved?
Right.
It's the same with Charlie Kirk. It's not a question of, I don't know anything. But the question is never just did the guy pull the trigger.
Of course, yeah.
Prove or disprove that with the videotape that we don't have from the Charlie Kirk assassination for some reason. But whatever. The point is,
and the bullet
only
doesn't
one part
match
of
the
story.
gun
The
now.
question was, were there other people involved? And in the case of
how about that?
I got this corpus of information from a guy almost off the street. We showed that it was real. I'm always skeptical of this stuff, very skeptical, but it turns out this was actually from Thomas Crooks's YouTube account. And the FBI claimed that this didn't exist. Well, of course, they knew it existed. So then the question becomes, well, why are they, since the man is dead, in this sole shooter crime? There's a lone gunman, and the lone gunman's gone. Why would we hold back anything, any evidence we have? But they did. And that would include video surveillance of the shooting range where he trained to shoot. It's a pretty good shot, over 100 yards with a .223. I shoot a .223. That's like, all these SEALs are like, oh, that's nothing. But like for a non-SEAL,
right.
it's a decent shot. So there's videotape from the shooting range. Did he train alone? Who was with him? Never been released. And the investigation was shut down. So what does that mean? I don't know. But I mean, like, what is going on?
Yeah. And I got to say,
why can't we know?
Well, hearing the heroic former director of counterterrorism come on your show and kind of say the same thing does just have a lot more weight to it when the guy was literally the director of counterterrorism and going like, hey, what's going on here? We have not gotten answers.
And he tied those facts. Those are facts. He stated facts. And by the way, we've just heard the FBI is not actually investigating him. That was all fake. he retained his security clearance until the morning he left. So if he was under investigation for treason or something, he wouldn't have held his clearance and have
Right.
access to
Exactly.
highest level intelligence, which he retained until the moment he resigned. So, okay, that was all a lie. But he said point blank, one of the most informed people in the United States, with clearances higher, I think, even than Mark Levin's, there's a connection between Trump's decision to go to war in Iran and these not fully explained acts of violence. He said that. So, okay, before we denounce him as crazy, which maybe he is, I don't know. It doesn't seem to be, but I hold open any possibility. What is he talking about? And there has not only been zero interest from like the people in charge of ginning up interest, like the internet, the influencers.
Right.
There's been calculated discouragement and attacks on anyone who persists in asking the question.
Yeah, well, like,
And I haven't gotten involved because I know everybody and it's so emotional to me. But at a certain point, I'm gonna, whatever. I feel like I've got a pretty close vantage on all this stuff, and I'm getting a little sick of it because every American has a right to justice, not just for himself, but for any other American citizen. Our whole system rests on the idea that there will be justice affected by the U.S. government.
Yep.
And we have a right to know. You have no right to keep that from me. On what grounds are you keeping that from me? You can't browbeat me into it by screaming Candace Owens again and again and again.
yeah,
or
that's
whatever.
right. And look, like,
Sick
to
of
me,
this.
I've tried.
It's outrageous.
No,
actually.
absolutely. And listen, I'll say just personally, like, I knew Charlie, and not super well. We weren't like close friends, but like I'd done a show a few times and we texted a few times. He had me at that last had me do the debate there, and we hung out for a little bit while we were there. And it's I wasn't as close with him as you were, but it's even just like being friends with someone like that. It's first off, it's very jarring to see that happen, and then he's got a wife and little kids. Really tragic, horrible situation. And I'm like, my incentives on all of this is like, I just don't want to believe that this was anything more than like one crazy guy with a trans furry boyfriend or whatever. Like that actually is much more comforting to me than it's some conspiracy. Half of Twitter seemed to think I was the one who got him killed or something like that, or me and you and Megan or something.
I very much vehemently want to believe that.
Yes, right. So like, we don't want that. I will say so, and I have not done like deep dives and watched all of Candace's shows on this or something, but like there's little pieces of information, just like it's been confirmed by a few different people that he was texting them, "They're gonna kill me."
Yep.
Like, hey man, that's got to be like totally exhausted and investigated. I mean, what is this here? This is a pretty big deal. You really got to get to the bottom of stuff like that. And look, as you're sitting here, and it's almost like sometimes people will call, they'll call you out for being a conspiracy theorist or something, or they say the just asking questions.
You know what's worse than being a conspiracy theorist is having no curiosity about questions that have not been answered.
Well, also there's just
and
something.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I believe in curiosity and skepticism, and I've encouraged that in a lot of people, and some have been very resistant to be curious or skeptical. And there are two sides to this. There's not simply the people who are coming up with conspiracy theories, some of them obviously fantastical and wrong, I would think. But there's also the government side, which is telling you, shut up, we have this solved. And I think we should apply the same skepticism to their claims as well. There's no reason.
Which we know now that the ATF analyzed the bullet, and the bullet doesn't match the gun found at the scene. So there is no evidence that Tyler Robinson shot Charlie Kirk.
That the FBI should get an automatic, on the basis of what?
Well, also
their track record of always telling the truth to people.
Right.
Like, what are you even talking about?
Well,
and how dare you threaten me and call me names? I mean, I'm not getting paid for this. I've stayed out of it. I'm just getting too mad.
Well,
watching this.
So even before the Epstein files got released, back when the Podesta emails were released and the original Pizzagate theory was born, and if you look through some of those Podesta emails, look, they're clearly talking in code. Now, what is the code? I mean, people are speculating that it was about children. Now, I have absolutely no reason to believe that, but they're not planning pizza parties. You know what I
Nope.
mean? Like they're speaking in code
When
about something.
Epstein's urologist, who's just prescribed him erectile dysfunction drugs, says, take the pills and then meet me for pizza and grape soda, that's in the Epstein files. Maybe it has nothing to do with sex. Maybe they're actually, you get wicked
Right.
hungry after you take the boner pill. I don't know. But the fact that nobody cares to find out or
right.
even interview the urologist, just bring him in and say, hey, what is this?
That's right. And I felt the same way
Who
back
drinks
then.
grape soda? What are you even talking? There's no white
Yes.
person in America who drinks grape soda.
I
Stop.
haven't had grapes. I maybe had grape soda when I was a child.
I'm not
once.
against it. I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
saying, like, talk to the urologist.
Holy
No, well, right,
shit.
exactly. So it's the thing about it is, right, like even with the original Pizzagate thing, the position of like the corporate media was to sit there and go, you're an idiot if you think this code is about, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist if you think, instead of putting a microphone in front of John Podesta and going, hey, you're clearly speaking in code here. People are assuming that that code is for raping children, so clear this up, because it can't be any worse than what people are speculating. So what is it, sir? And no one ever even thinks to do that in this
all the
phony
hostility
media.
is aimed at people who are asking the questions.
And look-
that's a tell right there. You
Yes.
know, there's people. Here you have gunshots ringing out in my country, people getting killed or an attempted murder, a couple of attempted murders. There will be more, unfortunately. And anyone who's interested in like finding out or doesn't automatically trust the government, which we're supposed to be skeptical of, that person is the villain.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, in a similar thing, there, I don't know, maybe I'm going to struggle to like word this the right way, but there's certain things that in a vacuum might be true, but aren't true in all circumstances. So in other words, like if you, typically speaking, you'd go, hey, before you want to start, you know, believing something, you got to see strong evidence for it or something like that. Or you can't just start theorizing and speculating about things without like some indication or something
Yep.
pointing you in that direction. But then like if me and you both just wake up together and we're blacked out for the last 10 hours and we're chained up in a prison somewhere or something like that, and you start going like, we got to start speculating about how the hell we got here because this is so crazy. You know what I mean? And then I'd be like, hey, my neighbor said something this morning to me about how, like, I bet it's going to be a rough day, you know? And I'm like, we got to think maybe my neighbor had something to do with this. Now, then some skeptic could come along and go, your neighbor saying it's going to be a bad day isn't actually evidence. And you're like, okay, but we're here. Like, we got to. And so in a sense, there's like, okay, yes, you can be skeptical, and it's good to be skeptical of some of these claims, but at the same time, we're sitting here watching. It's so crazy to watch, right? But the Never Trumpers are now the biggest hardcore Trump supporters as they're destroying the coalition that they were afraid of, right?
Yep.
Trump himself.
Right. And so you've watched this happen, and that does lead you to go, how exactly did they pull this off? How is it that people like, you know, so look, I'm a little bit more hot-headed than you at times, and maybe this is because, you know, I'm a decade younger than you, and I still drink big glasses of whiskey at night, and and I'm just furious about a lot of things, and I'm maybe I should, you know, let some of that go, but you know, like I'm still furious at Ben Shapiro, and the only reason I hate Ben Shapiro's guts is because he called Ron Paul a Jew hater. Back in the day when it was totally just ridiculous. You read some of these tweets recently, I think. Ron Paul is up there talking about how it's not wise to fight multiple wars. This is what brings down nation. And Ben Shapiro goes, oh, I bet you just want to strangle a Jew. You know, like, fuck you, dude. How dare you speak to a man so much better than you that way? Anyway, but...
That's right. That's right. Ben Shapiro on his mini pony. The Mossad asset that is here to just shape the Zionist narrative, and paid $1 million to speak at America Fest. How about that? And Charlie fucking hated him. Charlie hated him. And they are spitting on that man's legacy by even allowing Ben Shapiro in the fucking building.
So I was furious over the 12-day war last summer.
I was too.
And I went on Breaking Points, great show with Crystal and Sager, who I love very much.
He's so smart, man.
Great. Literally love Sager to death. He's just great. Someone I'm really happy to call a friend. And so I went on their show right after it, and I called for Trump's impeachment. I said he should be impeached and removed for this. He's launched a war of aggression. It's illegal. It's for a foreign country. It's what he promised not to do. I was very angry. I still stand by that, but I was angry. And then, of course, all of them, all the guys, Josh Hammer and Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, they all just start talking shit about me. Look, this guy doesn't support Trump.
Yep.
Oh, he voted for Trump last time, but he's calling for his impeachment now. As if I don't remember where all you guys were in 2016.
Ron
when National
DeSantis.
Review was running their Never Trump edition, and Ben Shapiro promised for deeply held, principled reasons he could never support Donald Trump. And Mark Levin was never Trump. All
these guys were never Trumpers and on the Ron DeSantis train until they realized that DeSantis was not going to win, and then they jumped ship. They have no loyalty to any person. Their loyalty is to Israel and the Zionist cause, and that is it. There is no loyalty for people. You are loyal to the cause or nothing else.
Were never Trump. Now that he's become a war hawk, what he explicitly ran against being in every election, now that he's become that, they all love him to death, and they're destroyed. So anyway, my point is, sorry, sometimes you see facts like that, and you go, that's worth speculating about. I do have some questions I'd like to ask on how exactly these guys were able to infiltrate this movement, destroy it from within, and, set our country on this trajectory toward another catastrophic war. Yep. There's a lot that went into that.
I couldn't agree more. I guess the only last thing I would say about it is you started by saying the legacy media covered for the crimes of their masters, the ruling class. Okay, got it. I mean, that's what they exist to do. That's why we have NBC News. That's why CNN
that's
exists.
right.
No, I totally. That's why Fox is here. But to see people in independent media doing that, and I understand it's very easy to get sidetracked. Like you're mad at one person. And so anyone who is asking similar questions to that person, must be on that side or something. But try to retain independence in your head.
Hey guys, like, share, comment, subscribe. Help me break into the algorithm. My first stream got nuked. Want to get some people back in here, so help me out. I'd appreciate it.
Don't get sidetracked. Certain questions have to be answered no matter who's asking them, right?
Yeah.
One of the questions I still can't answer is why is it that all the neocons are the ones leading the screaming and anyone who asks questions about Charlie Kirk's death when Charlie Kirk was an enemy of the neocons.
Yep.
Open enemy of the neocons. Invited you to TPUSA. You don't invite... And he didn't. It's not because the kids at TPOC are like, oh, I grew up loving Dave Smith.
Yeah. Well, I said that. I've said this on other shows too, but I said this to you that it's there was something about inviting you or Megyn Kelly. It's
we're on Fox News. It's fine.
You guys and huge
famous
stars on Fox News.
Right.
Not just someone on Fox News, two of the biggest
shows. There's no reason to invite you to a Turning Point event unless he wants the kids in the audience to hear your views.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which he did because he substantially agreed with them. Yeah. And I would know because I talked to him about this a lot. A lot over years.
Exactly.
So for the neocons, whom he at best didn't trust and mostly really didn't like, I never talk about what I think Charlie thought because it feels so weird because he's gone. Yeah. But I just have to say this. They're the ones leading the charge on shut up. Don't ask any questions. You tell me what this is.
Well, but
I'm not going to take orders from them. Who are these people anyway?
This is the same reason why. This is the reason why I read that text message that he sent me.
Yep.
And it was because, well, part of it was because Candace asked, and I'm friends with Candace, and she lost someone she was very close to. But part of it was that, because it's a weird thing to do. It's a weird thing to share private text messages with anyone, especially someone who just died. And I got some pushback for that, and I understand why people I get their point.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I'm not sure, but it was the thing where Netanyahu immediately is trying to hijack his legacy. Josh Hammer and all these guys are
Within
immediately
minutes.
trying to hijack his and so it's kind of
and
like
selling their books, by the way,
right,
at the same
right.
I am 100% convinced that Turning Point USA was created to manipulate the evangelical Christian right to support the Zionist cause. It is an American organization that wouldn't have to worry about registering under FARA because it's a homegrown organization, Christian based, so you would think their allegiance would be to America. I think the whole thing was structured specifically to engineer a narrative for the Christian right to follow to get them on board with the Zionist agenda. And the more that goes on and the more lies they get caught in, the more I believe it. I think Erica was his handler. She has showed zero actual emotion since he died. I think she was placed in his life. I think there's a lot of things that went on that we may never know the truth about, but weren't on the up and up.
Right. No, literally, dude, it's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. Josh Hammer did 3 interviews immediately after. The only reason anyone's interviewing him is because he was friends with Charlie Kirk, or he was close around his circle or whatever. And every single time he mentioned how much Charlie loved his book. It's like, Jesus, dude. I mean, I just could never imagine
I think
getting
it's a
here.
little strong.
Everybody,
to say
you know, the last
Charlie
thing,
was friends with Josh Hammer.
well, okay, well, he had him in his circles or whatever, his handler or whatever it was. But you know, I remember, you know, right before Charlie died, he called me and he said, "Man, I just wish everyone would listen to your podcast." It's like, this is so crazy of a thing to say.
Unbelievable.
But the reason I released that is because I'm like, look, I don't know exactly where Charlie was on his evolution on this topic. Obviously, he had at one point been a diehard pro-Israel guy, but a lot of people were that and then kind of woke up over the last couple years. But I know that he texted me after my debate with Douglas Murray that he said he thought I did a great job, and he really did. He said something like, I read it verbatim on my show, but he said something like, I believe it or not, I really didn't disagree with almost anything you said.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, Ben Shapiro wasn't sending me that text.
No.
So for people to try to pretend there was no daylight between the two of them is just
daylight.
not true.
No, there was hostility.
Right.
They hated
Big
each
time.
other.
And not just with, you know, those guys. Yeah, hostility. I mean, I don't want to overstate it. I'm not saying he hated them as people, but I
He
mean,
hated
did not
them.
agree at
Right.
all. And
And certainly didn't agree with war with Iran.
at
sure.
all. And with also, honestly, some of the Christian Zionist leaders. I mean, Charles was very,
Yep.
he loved Israel as a country, for sure. And I think he had a complicated theology, which I did not fully understand and still don't fully understand. But the idea that you would put another country before your own, like he just rejected that flat out. And some of the Christian Zionist leaders, man, are very aggressive and shark-like and very money-oriented and pushy.
And he started talking about that openly.
Well, he talked about it with me a lot.
Yeah. Well, he talked about it on Megyn Kelly's show. I mean, talked about the reaction he got
From the evangelical leaders?
Well, maybe not from the evangelical.
It wasn't. It
leaders.
was a mix. It was a mixture.
Yeah, it was probably,
of,
probably a mix of both.
of you know,
Donors?
Jewish Zionists like the guys you mentioned, but also the people he grew up with who were evangelical leaders. And he was upset with
Frank
that. I mean,
Turek.
I talked to him about it at length. I
Rob
can't name names with who
Rob
was upset. I'm
McCoy.
not going to, but because he's gone. But yeah, that's just real. And I don't know. I don't even like talking about this, but I'm just offended by where this is going. And the bottom line is, every American has
Locke.
an interest in every murder getting solved, and not just in getting solved, but fully solved.
Yeah.
And if you have a government agency that's shutting down a legitimate line of inquiry, at very least you have to answer the question, why are you doing that?
Yep.
And Joe Kent has said in public multiple times, including to me, the FBI shut down any effort to look into international connections.
So what is the FBI's excuse now that the bullet doesn't match the gun that was found at the scene? So there is literally nothing tying Tyler Robinson to the shooting at all.
Here within days of the killing. So someone should ask the FBI, like, why'd you do that? And no one seems willing to ask.
And look, we also know what we know about this FBI, who I just could not be more disgusted with. And, you know, I know you saw when...
Everyone's afraid of them.
Well, what Dan Bongino was talking all types of shit to me on Twitter or whatever, but it's like...
A fragment doesn't equal proof. I don't think it was a bullet fragment that they found. I think they probably found a fragment of the microphone that exploded, which is why it doesn't match the ballistics to the gun. Because it probably wasn't a bullet that they found. Because he wasn't shot. Because if he was shot, his head would have been fucking blown off with a 30-06. So everybody knew that story was bullshit. So what they probably found was shrapnel from the microphone that exploded underneath his shirt. That's why there are no ballistics. That's why they're saying that.
Like, look, man, you know, there was a thing where people were saying they were trying to goat Dan Bongino into debating me because he was talking shit about me, and you know,
Fuck Dan
I think I
Bongino.
responded in kind.
Dan Bon
But
Shapiro.
the thing is, like, he can't. Dan Bongino, not only can he not come debate me, Dan Bongino can't ever do a difficult interview ever again for the rest of his life because
Nope.
he's ended in one question. Literally one question ends it. I just go, hey, okay, so you looked the American people in the eyes and you swore that you had seen the proof that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. Well, it's been declassified by an act of Congress now, so go ahead and tell us. What'd you say?
Yep.
What's the proof?
Yep.
It's all declassified now. What it doesn't what are the few exceptions in the rule? If it's national security or if it harms the victims or something like that, how would it possibly be any of those for you to just tell me what you saw that made you comfortable enough to go out there and swear that you had seen proof that he killed himself? Cash Patel, Dan Bongino, but these guys specifically, and this is one of the big things I think that really...
I just want to interject.
No,
this is
go
not
ahead.
aimed at anyone in particular, but you know, we say we know things, but I would always add the caveat to the extent you can know things. Like,
of course,
I thought I've known many things. I've turned out to be wrong. You know, so I could be wrong, but this is sincere. I believe I can say with certainty that Jeffrey Epstein was murdered. Well, I mean, but of course, I'm always open to countervailing evidence, always, because I'm
so
ever
let's
mindful
see that.
of
The ATF said the ballistics don't match the gun. That came from an ATF ballistics analysis from the defense team. So they said it does not match the gun. So if that's the case, then yeah, the entire story about his steel neck is total bullshit. The story about the gun is total bullshit. It makes sense why the explosive sniffing dogs didn't find the gun, because it wasn't the gun that shot Charlie. It makes sense why the gun was found after the FBI showed up, after the dogs had already searched for the gun. It makes sense that it blows the story apart about the bullet getting lodged in his vertebrae, because obviously if there's no bullet to run ballistics on, that never happened. So this just completely blew 7 or 8 different parts of this story apart. So none of it makes sense now.
My capacity for being wrong. But I can say if you could x-ray my heart, you would find that I believe with total certainty he was murdered and the people in the U.S. government knew that he was murdered. I don't want that to be true, but I believe it is true. So, like, it's going to take a lot. You're going to have to show me that that's false.
Well, the reason why I have so much contempt for Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, particularly, and Pam Bondi too, but
Yeah.
more so the other two, is that these guys went around, and really Dan Bongino, I mean, Kash did many podcasts and stuff, but Dan Bongino got rich doing his show and had a really big show. And
Yes, he did.
flamed that Epstein stuff for so long. Was like, don't let go of this one. This is a huge scandal. We're going to get in there and expose it. And I got to say, every bit as much as the war in Iran, maybe not quite as much as this most recent one, but the covering up the Epstein scandal did so much to damage this administration. Because it went to something very fundamental. The fundamental promise of Donald Trump, and the reason why Donald Trump, I believe the main reason that he rode to political success and won the presidency twice, was that he said he was going to drain the swamp. Drain the swamp was an incredibly effective campaign slogan. It was essentially saying, look, man, on some level, almost all Americans know this. This city in D.C. is filled with corruption, and the people in political power have committed profound crimes against the American people, and none of them have been held accountable for it. And we're going to hold them accountable for this. And for this Justice Department now to go in and put up
there are 0 arrests on the Epstein files, 0 investigations into the Epstein files, 0 arrests on the Russiagate hoax, no investigation into the 2020 election, no arrests there. They're doing nothing. Nothing that they said they were fucking gonna do. They gaslit us this entire campaign and completely sold us out. And played us the fuck out. And you will not change my mind about any of that. I don't give a fuck what happens the next 3 years.
0 deep state arrests. I mean, dude, if you just think about the fact that the intelligence agencies framed the sitting president for treason for 4 years. I mean, an obvious deep state coup to overthrow, or an attempted deep state coup to attempt to overthrow a democratically elected president. Like, it was an outrage that they did it to him on the campaign, but it is a little bit different when he's a presidential candidate than when he is the commander in chief, the president of the United States.
How about the fact that Israel was blackmailing a sitting president of the United States when Bill Clinton was president because he was negotiating the Oslo Accords and he was in favor of a 2-state solution, and Epstein was at the White House 17 times when Clinton was in office, and the Monica Lewinsky scandal happens. And guess who leaks the phone calls? Israel. How did they get the tapes? Nobody wants to ask these questions though, right? Because they're our greatest ally. And it's anti-Semitic to point that out.
States of America. They framed him for being a Russian spy. Donald Trump is a lot of things. He is not a Russian spy. No. Okay, there has never been one. It was the most ridiculous thing ever. It was all complete phony evidence, and they knew it. They knowingly went forward with that. And Andrew McCabe admitted on 60 Minutes that he said their plan was to invoke the 25th Amendment, but they realized they couldn't get enough people to go along with that, and so they settled for Robert Mueller. They settled for a special investigation that would tie him down and not let him get his America First agenda through. So there's that. there's COVID, there's, you know what I'm saying? There's the Epstein stuff. There's all types of crime. I mean, COVID, you think about it. They freaking locked down the country and didn't disclose that they made it. They made the germ themselves. Fauci was like the hero of the response for like a year and a half before it finally came out that it was him who made it. I mean, just, and they have just at every turn protected power. And again, like with the Epstein thing, man, like you only have to know, like, I don't know, you just know, like, even if you know like 5 or 6 things about it, you're like, okay, this is some type of huge conspiracy. You know, like, I don't know exactly what it is. And by the way, the files being released did shake up my interpretation of the whole thing. I tweeted this once, but I was saying it tongue in cheek, but I kind of meant it sincerely, that I used to speculate that Jeffrey Epstein worked for Mossad. And after the files came out, it's looking a lot more like the Mossad worked for Jeffrey Epstein.
Exactly.
I mean, I did not think he was the Rothschilds guy. I didn't realize that, you know? And so, like, this thing is a gigantic conspiracy. It's an interesting, limited look into how power really.
Until Iran is no longer a threat to Israel, this war will continue, because Israel only cares about expanding their borders. And like Mike Huckabee said, they have a biblical deed to the land between the Nile and the Euphrates. And Iran is the only country that has a military that can prevent them from doing it. And once Iran is out of the way, Israel can go about their business and expand their borders, and none of those countries, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, because we protect them, Egypt, none of those countries will be able to stop the Israeli military. So Iran needs to be removed for the greater Israel project to succeed. So this war is not going to end until Iran is no longer a threat. Period. End of story. I don't care what they say on the news. It's bullshit.
Works. And you know what I mean? Like, what's really
it's
going
like looking
on?
through a stained glass window. You don't get a clear picture, but you see the shapes and you realize this is not what I thought it was. I actually came away from reading a lot of the Epstein stuff with a view of Israel that was diminished. I thought Israel had less power. I mean, of course he was working with Mossad. I said that and got called a Jew hater or whatever. It's just true. So we're also working with CIA and intelligence services from around the world. But what he really was doing was acting as an employee of others, as a kind of communications hub
Right.
Yep.
between the biggest stakeholders in the West.
Yep.
And so what you really saw was that governments aren't in charge.
Nope.
There's no meaningful nation state with full sovereignty. Like, that's just not a thing. There's a suprastructure,
Yep.
whose outlines I can't fully see, or even partly.
That's why my channel is called FTR, Free the Republic, because we are not a sovereign nation. That's exactly why my channel is named what it is.
See, but it's clearly there. And it's not all being run from the Levant by Netanyahu, who's probably got an IQ of 110. He's not a genius. So, like, do you know what I mean?
Yes, 100%.
It's way bigger than Israel. Israel's just like a place to, hide out if you've been accused of a crime, get a passport, do some money laundering, whatever. It's a lot of things, but it's not. Israel's not running the world.
Yeah, no, there's something that you're absolutely right. There are power structures that we do not fully know about that are way more.
Anybody that is a dual citizen should not be able to hold. I don't think they should be able to hold public office in our country at any level, but especially at the state and national level. If you are a dual citizen between the United States and Israel, you should not be in public office, because you have a loyalty issue. Unless you are an American citizen and only an American citizen, you should not be able to hold public office, period.
important
Of
than a
course, because we
senator.
bought the biggest lie of all, which is a competition between nation states, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's right.
Ghana's got its own interests, but so does Singapore and China and India, and it's like, yeah, to some extent, but that's not. As soon as you have the free flow of capital, a globalized economy, then you have a globalized government. It's just a fact, and by government I mean a governing body, which may be informal or have blurry edges, but it's still totally real. It's way more real than countries.
Yeah, yeah.
How are countries like that's like almost a medieval view?
Well, even
Countries with kings and armies. It's like so dumb.
Yeah, no, that's right. And maybe it was, you know, it's like it probably wasn't even true in medieval times. You know what I mean?
It literally
like probably
wasn't, but like after 1848, like after you had like the creation of like real, what the resemblance or the maybe the fiction of nation states. I mean, I think it's more complicated than I'm making it sound, but
yeah,
it's clearly not as simple as everyone else assumes.
yeah. Well, I know
Countries acting in their own interests. I mean, come on.
There's this really great book written by Murray Rothbard, who I mentioned earlier, called The Progressive Era, and it's about it's about I think that it goes from like Theodore Roosevelt through Woodrow Wilson, FDR. And one of the things that they talk about is that there was, and this really is true, is that there were real people who really like meant well and were kind of, in my opinion, got it wrong. But you know, the kind of moderate socialist types or the progressives who were like, hey, we're such a wealthy country, we should have more of a managed economy so that we can make sure it's working for everybody. But really, what ends up happening in the progressive era is then all the all the titans of industry, all the robber barons, as they call it, they all got on board with it. And they went, oh, yeah, totally. We should have a managed economy. Yeah, absolutely. We'll be doing the managing. You know, well, it was like all the money interests that they supposedly wanted to rein in were the guys who ended up getting control of the government anyway. And so this is how.
That's why the Titanic sank. And that's why J.P. Morgan wasn't on the boat.
Lives Matter, as sponsored by Mike.
The biggest opponents to the Federal Reserve were all taken out on that ship. And J.P. Morgan was supposed to be there and conveniently was not aboard the Titanic when it sank. If it even was the Titanic, because in all likelihood it was the Olympus that sank. But you really need to know your shit to even know what I'm talking about right now, so.
Microsoft.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. That's right.
It's always
the gay pride parade has like a Bank of America float coming through it. And you're like, I mean, I know there is some leftist out there who really believes in the gay pride parade, but like something bigger is going on than what you're paying attention to.
Really, it's liberation. Just trust me. This is going to be liberation. Don't worry.
It's too ridiculous, man.
I know. Well, good. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Oh,
and
of
I'm
course.
sorry if that got, I never get emotional, but I'm sorry to start yelling at you, but that just stuff just.
I enjoy it. It's literally nothing makes me happier than to be yelled at in agreement.
You got me wound up. Dave Smith, you're the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so I'm going to put on. We didn't get any Venezuela oil. The oil companies said that it wasn't worth going there and creating the infrastructure needed to get to the oil and refine it, because it is not the same kind of oil that's found in the Middle East. So the whole Venezuela oil thing, total bullshit. The entire narrative was a fucking lie. Give me a second. I'm gonna put on Valhalla and watch some of this.
Fake news, Trump. Behind every Main
This
Street
is his
storefront,
stream from last night.
every
If you
online
guys
shop.
don't follow him, follow him.
London. Okay. A lot of Floridas. I'm saying expulcat. I can't. Garage or a basement for 30 years that got pulled out by Tyler. Why would it be covered in 7 different people's fingerprints? Odd. Now, something even more bizarre that adds to this. I don't know if you guys saw this yet. This is also breaking. Look at this guy. Bro, you're a compulsive liar. All I've talked about is literally shit coming straight off of news. And this fucking retard is throwing a tantrum already. I haven't even got to my personal opinion.
That's right.
You dumb fuck. What, you don't like the news? Does the news hurt your feelings? Okay. Oh no, the news. I don't like the news because it doesn't go with my narrative. Yeah, too fucking bad. You're a retard. That's the way.
So, if you guys don't know who this is, his name is Nate. He was a Green Beret for, I think, 16 years. He knows his shit. When it comes to ballistics, rifles, shootings, explosives. He's been saying the whole time that this 30-06 bullet was bullshit. He's been totally vindicated. And he talks about it. So we'll watch some of this.
Okay, so this also just happened today, right after news came out about the bullet not matching the rifle. Guess what else happened? The head sheriff, Nate Brooksby, who arranged for the accused Charlie Kirk assassin Tyler Robinson to turn himself in, has suddenly resigned from his position at the sheriff's department. I'm sure this is a huge coincidence. I'm sure there's no correlation between the fact that the head sheriff for the case in Utah chose to resign just about, I think, like 2 hours after this story broke. Now, if you remember who he was the sheriff that initially came out and debunked the story that Tyler Robinson's father turned him in. If you guys don't remember that, he was the one that came out and said, no, it actually wasn't Tyler Robinson's parents. They never turned him in. It was one of my friends, not me, but I'm saying what the sheriff said at a presser. He said, it was one of my friends who retired out of the force a few years ago, who was Tyler Robinson's Boy Scout instructor or something of the like. And he recognized Tyler from the photos, and he reached out to the family, and he's the one who went and convinced Tyler to turn himself in by telling him that if he didn't turn himself in, that they were going to show up to his house and kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So that sheriff has now resigned.
How about that?
But again, I'm sure it's a massive coincidence. The timing, there could be nothing suspicious about the timing on all this.
Nothing suspicious
at all.
All.
If I had to guess, he probably knows what lack of evidence they have, and now that he's seeing oh shit, this might exonerate the kid, what are we going to do? He was the one in charge of the investigation, right? The FBI is helping assist the Utah Sheriff's Department, but the Utah Sheriff's Department's the ones in charge of the entire investigation. The FBI helps them, so he's the one that takes all the brunt. If Tyler walks free, that dude, well, he would have been the one that everybody would have pointed their fingers at and said, you botched this.
Tyler is going to walk free.
He said, nah, dog. Nah, the Jonah Hill meme. You know the Jonah Hill meme? Nah, dude.
Tyler is going to walk free.
He said, no, I'm
there's
cool.
nothing
I'm
tying
out.
him to
I'm
the
not even
murder
gonna wait
weapon
for
now.
the trial to start. The second that they came out and said that the bullet doesn't match the Magic 30-06, he was out. He said, no, thanks, we're done. Which, again, should tell you, not good. Now, I also see a lot of people trying to say this doesn't mean that a 30-06 wasn't used. It's just that the fragmentation of the bullet that they had in Charlie's body was so small that it still could have been. Okay, so I get it. You don't understand how ballistics works with a 30-06. A 30-06 is not going to hit human flesh and disintegrate completely other than a tiny little fragment. What it does tell us, if this is all they have is a tiny little sliver of a fragment in Charlie's body, that tells us automatically it most certainly was not a 30-06 because a 30-06 round is not going to fragment like that. Even the
That's exactly why I said what they found wasn't even part of a bullet. It was part of the microphone that exploded.
frangible rounds have now been tested, 30-06 frangible rounds, and they blow straight through everything too. And my buddy Jimmy Watson, fellow Navy SEAL, who again has been saying the exact same thing I have from day one, also explained this pretty well.
In this video for views, I would just say Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Come to think about it, I am doing this video for views. Otherwise, I would just film myself talking in the bathroom. It has been brought to my attention that there are still a few people saying that just because the ATF report says that it's inconclusive and that there's no match based on a piece of fragmentation of a bullet, doesn't mean that it's not a 30-06. But you see, by saying that it's just a fragmentation of a bullet proves in of itself that it's not a 30-06, because they've already proven by way of physics that it's not possible for a 30-06 round to fragment like that. Other people are saying, no, that's the defense's argument. Well, how else do you think the defense came to that argument? You're wrong. They didn't just pull that out of thin air. They actually went off the ATS report that went off the autopsy report that says the fragmentation cannot be matched to Robinson's rifle. Yeah, I got you, because if it's a fragmentation of a bullet, it can't be a 30-06. And for the few of you that are still holding on that it's a 30-06 round like Erica Kirk, I'm beginning to think you're fans. I am not saying that Tyler Robinson wasn't used in some kind of weird way, but I am saying that Erica Kirk owes Tyler Robinson an apology. I actually can't wait for the comments on this video that try to argue that it's still a 30-06 bullet that went into his little fleshy neck, hit a chicken bone, did a freaking 90 straight down and exploded like a grenade.
Yeah, I mean, we all knew it was the dumbest thing. Why are people saying no audio? Everybody's saying audio is good, not good. Are we good? Audio is fine. Refresh. There you go. It's probably a YouTube thing. Okay, so no, audio is not down because everybody's telling me it's good. Just refresh. It sounds like a YouTube problem, guys. Just refresh your browser. So to Jimmy's point there, like the whole 30-06 story, I've been saying it from, you guys realize, and I put this out in my video, you guys realize I was the first, I'm the one who pushed this to begin with, that the FBI narrative was bullshit and there's no way a 30-06 was used. That was Nate that started this whole thing on the internet. And I started it on September 12th. If you didn't know, and I can pull the video up, and I'm not just saying this to toot my own horn. I'm just saying I staked my credibility on this very early, well before anybody else really was willing to, because again, I'm not saying I'm some guru. I just knew immediately that there was no way that 30-06 hit Charlie Kirk and created no exit wound. It just wasn't ever going to be a thing. And so let's see, what did I got the video here. Yeah, here we go. So this was...
Has Kyrie texted you back?
I don't want to talk about it.
How was the math test?
Don't want to talk about it.
You need...
Right here. Here's the video. 6 months ago, this was posted on September 12th. Is the FBI lying about the Charlie Kirk situation? This whole video was about how 30-06 narrative is bullshit and the FBI is lying. So, yeah, I mean, I've been talking about this since basically 24 hours afterwards, and everybody's called me a conspiracy theorist. Steven Crowder called me a lying conspiracy theorist. Crowder. Right? I didn't know what I was talking about. You also had who else? He called me tinfoil hat. Said said they all knew better than me.
Anybody that's a part of Conservative Inc., Steven Crowder, Bongino, Shapiro, the entire Daily Wire, Talmud Tatum, they could all get fucked. They're all getting paid for by Salem Media, which also got leaked yesterday, that they are all affiliated with Salem Media, and Salem Media is paying all of those creators. Look it up.
It's like, okay, maybe. But it turns out, I said it like 24 hours after he was shot. And because, like, again, I'm not some major guru, but we all knew, right? Like, everybody who's hunted, everybody who's in the military, they all are already all knew. And not only that, how many other special operators and hunters and Marine Scout snipers and Marines and infantrymen were all saying the same thing?
All
this is
of
bullshit.
them.
We know this is bullshit. From
All
day
of
one.
them.
All of us were. And nobody wanted to listen to the people that you could consider experts. Not just me, but tons of people in the space that are experts. We're the lying conspiracy theory grifters. And it turns out, no,
I'll be right
we
back.
were not, were we? Now we have to figure out, okay, well, if we can't match those weapons together, can't match the bullet inside Charlie to the weapon, what the hell is actually going on here? Is there now the conspiracy theories now, or I call them conspiracy theories, we quote them because obviously the FBI narrative was always the biggest conspiracy theory. Well, what do we got here? Well, let's do some hypotheticals here. Okay. If we're assuming that the defense's report coming out of the ATF is accurate, which I'm going to assume it is if the defense is using it, they're saying that there is bullet fragments or a bullet inside of Charlie's neck. So what that tells us is he was shot with a higher powered rifle round, which I've said from day one, I do believe he was based off the cavitation in his neck and all those things. It looked like, but I always thought it was a smaller caliber round, an AR-15 round, or, a 223, 5.56, 300 blackout. I said that from day one, day two. That's what it looked like to me and still looks like. Well, if we don't have the 30-06, something shot him. But again, this is operating under the assumptions that the ATF report is real. Who's to say this isn't also part of some big weird cover-up? I don't know. I'm just going hypothetically. If the ATF report is true, they pulled the fragments out of Charlie. He compares them to the rifle, and he can't get a match. That tells us he was shot. What was he shot by, and who was he shot by, and where was he shot? Because also what we know is the angle that he was shot from never made sense to begin with the injury that we were told. But it did make sense from different locations around there. So again, I don't know. We don't know. But the big problem we have here now is that's their only suspect. They put everything on Tyler Robinson. Remember? Kash Patel's FBI. They were done with their investigation within 48 hours. We know that. And then they shut down Joe Kent, Tulsi Gabbard, the National Counterterrorism Center. We know that they shut down the CIA from also trying to investigate this and look into foreign involvement and foreign ties. And they just said, we're good. We got him. No more investigation. Okay, what happens now if Tyler walks? Who's your suspect? You don't have any other suspects. What do they say? They just go, oh, well, this is all Candace Owens' fault because she what's it called when you taints the jury pool. She tainted the jury pool. That's what they're going to blame it on. Just wait. TPU, if he walks, which I think there's a high possibility he walks, if he walks, that will be the narrative from the Zionist and TPUSA and Erica Kirk, and that is that, well, it was because of Candace Owens and Nate and Ian Carroll, and they all tainted the jury. That's why it happened. That'll be the lie. That'll be the lie that they try to shill out because they have nothing. If he walks, they have nothing. They have no other suspect. They have no other lead. The investigation's been done for 6 months. They're hosed. But what that also tells me is the prosecution basically has to do everything in their power to take this to trial. Even if they have nothing and they know they're going to lose, they have to take it to trial. They cannot just go, whoops, screwed this one up. Sorry, guys. Well, sorry, America. Turns out this kid didn't do it, but I guess the story's over. So what are they going to do? I don't know. Maybe there's a bunch more evidence that we don't know about. But remember, we were also told by TPUSA that there is insurmountable levels of evidence. This is the most evidence anybody has ever seen for a murder trial ever. Remember that? Remember when they told us that? And it's like, oh, really? Because now with the first big piece of evidence that's been released to us turns out it's not going to be permissible evidence. And it's the most important evidence. In fact, it's about the only, it's the pillar of evidence, the murder weapon. If you can't match the murder weapon to the shot, that's it. Like you got nothing. Because we have to convict Tyler Robinson beyond a reasonable doubt. And if you don't have a murder weapon, you don't know there's no understanding the ballistics to this. There's also so much controversy around this story. There's no way you're getting a jury of 12 people to convict him on what, vibes? Hey, look, we don't really know how the kid pulled it off, but he must have. Like, no. And then also, okay, if we can't match the round inside Charlie to the random chicken coop 30-06, who the fuck put that 30-06 there? It wasn't used to take out Charlie. What the hell was it doing there? Who put it there? Tyler Robinson put it there and then went to the roof and left it there, but didn't use it? Does that make sense? And also the bomb dogs that we know, the sheriff's department bomb dogs couldn't find this rifle, obviously because it hadn't been shot. And now, that starts to all make a lot more sense, right? The reason why the bomb dogs couldn't find the 30-06 in the chicken coop is because it hadn't been shot, so there was no explosive residue for the dogs to smell, which makes perfect sense now that that round doesn't match that 30-06 because it was never fucking fired. Not within, enough time for those bomb dogs to find. But then the FBI shows up and finds it immediately. Walks straight to the chicken coop. Here it is. Okay. And then what do they tell us? Tyler Robinson's dad recognizes his rifle, even though it was a fake picture that went up. That's not even the real picture. And that's why you turned him in. And we find out that's not true. Sheriff's department has to come out and correct the record and say, no, actually, his parents never admitted to him doing it and never said they turned him in. It was a family friend. So, but then also we have to get into what were the love letters? Those random letters from Tyler that sounded like, 16th century Shakespearean talk, my love, and all those things, which it just looked like ChatGPT written garbage. That's your evidence now, by the way. You can't match any evidence to the actual shot. So now you got to use this bizarre text message that nobody believes he actually sent to begin with, because that's not the way Gen Z kids talk. It's not the way a 22-year-old kid talks.
We have got to the point where literally anybody can build a fully working app without knowing how to code. This is Base 44. This is a first look at the current industry-leading AI app builder, and you wouldn't believe the kind of apps that people are creating. Smart nutrition apps, inventory trackers, onboarding tools, you name it. And if the only thing stopping me from making the app is the idea, then why not build an app that gives me endless app ideas? So let's make it. Pro tip, I draft the full app spec in ChatGPT, and then I drop the prompt directly into Base 44. It gives me super detailed structure. And here it is. Everything I laid out in detail as it goes. This is pretty awesome, but I want to make it playful. So I'm going to add a swipe left and swipe right interface. The same usability we all know. Now I'm going to add one more feature. So every idea that I favorite will turn into a kickoff prompt to start building the app itself. And that's it. Just come up with your idea, any idea, and Base 44 will do the rest. So go to Base 44 and create apps with your name on it.
When Puerto Rico finds you, she recognizes the spirit you've kept hidden. She leans in and ignites the part of you built to explore and feel joy without restraint. Awaken your senses. Discover Puerto Rico.
And then what about the bullets? What about all the bullets that you found that had, what was it, catch fascists and all these things? Where are those? Who put those there? Why did he inscribe a bunch of bullets and then leave them in the woods, but with a gun in the chicken coop? None of this is making any sense anymore. Right? Now we're going, okay. I still do think Tyler Robinson's involved. I think he's a patsy. I said that on Alex Jones. I was just on Alex Jones shows earlier today. We were talking about that. I'll be back on his show tomorrow for a full hour segment to talk about this in the Warning Run, by the way, if you want to watch that. But I said this on his show on like day 4 after this happened, that if I had to guess, what I thought was that Ty, and you can go back and check the episode. It's at the end of the first episode we did together. I thought if I put on my tinfoil hat, maybe what could have happened, this was some type of MK Ultra style thing with Tyler Robinson, where they convince him to be a part of this, and they get him to bring the 30-06 with him. It's his family's 30-06. Hey, we need you to go stash it there by the chicken coop, right? So that way the real shooter can come get it later. And so he goes and he stashes it, and then they tell him to go to the roof so he can spot or keep an eye on whatever. He goes to the roof, and then all of a sudden, as he's watching, boom.
Hey, I'm gonna turn on Baron Coleman's podcast because he's going off right now, and I think we should probably watch it. Sorry, I disappeared for a minute.
Colored shorts, black hat with white logo. Glad to see everybody on a beautiful Wednesday night. I wasn't sure I was going to have a voice tonight, and I don't have a great voice, so my normal robust delivery might be a little dialed back. But yeah, as you come in, hit the like button. I know I don't say that enough. People come get on to me. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. We hit 250,000 subscribers the other night. Great progress, great progress. We have a brilliant show lined up, if I do say so myself. If you're a humble host, being humble would tell you, we got a great show lined up tonight. It's a high IQ show, building off of Candace's high IQ show earlier. You know, we've been alleged to have been in cahoots. Don't believe that, but there have been allegations that way. But no, it's not true. We just when high IQ people are both working on things, high IQ things happen at the same time from time to time. So we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to the creation of a patsy. Man, I hope my voice holds up tonight. We're gonna get to the creation of a patsy. We're gonna open that way. It's gonna be using a very, very current example of what looks like to me a out in the open patsy creation. It's just plain as day. You can see it, and we'll get to that. It's pretty devastating, frankly. And then we'll talk at some point about what is the most critical evidence we don't know where it is. There's a piece of evidence that we don't know where it is. It's not a rifle. It's not a bullet. It's not a text message. There's a very critical piece of evidence. We know it existed at one time. We don't know where it currently is. And finally, we are going to look at some court pleadings because I think TPUSA may be breaking the law on a regular basis, on almost a daily basis. It's my opinion, of course. Everything's my opinion. Everything you listen to here is my opinion. It's often quite good, but I do couch it in those terms so that we can perform a program without the hassle from lawyers. So when we go over the pleadings, I am going to raise an issue that keeps popping up because I greatly enjoyed the other night Dave Smith debating the Adam guy from PBD podcast. I thought it was brilliant. They did it on the Piers Morgan show. He just totally obliterated him, annihilated him. It wasn't even close. And the reason is the guy showed up and it did not look like they had a subject in mind that they were going to debate. And so they were debating two different topics. And Dave, a skilled, very masterful debater, forced the guy into a position he didn't want to be in, and then all he could do is hurl insults. It's masterful. He made him look very, very foolish. But at the same time, we were robbed of the opportunity to hear an actual debate on the issue. So when I bring up the charging documents today, we're going to look a little bit at the information, particularly at the probable cause statement inside the statement of facts inside the information. And we're going to look at what it is they claim they have. And when we do that, I'm going to take that opportunity to explain why I think debates on this are premature. I talked to Zach Costello about this. I said, I know you enjoy debating. You're very good at it. He's a very, very smart guy, very well-spoken kid. I say kid, he's about as old as I am, or maybe a little younger, but maybe 10 or 15 years younger. Who am I kidding? But you know, if it's premature to debate, it's premature to debate. It doesn't matter what doesn't matter if you're a masterful debater. If the facts are not there because the case is not yet developed. So we'll talk about that. We'll get to all that. But I do want to get into, man, I don't have a ton of voice tonight.
Yeah, he has 250,000 followers. His claim to fame originally was he is the one that found out that the medical examiner, the school, Tyler Robinson, the sheriff, the doctor, basically anybody involved in what happened to Charlie Kirk that day was searched in Israel in the weeks and months leading up to the shooting using Google Trends. And not only were they searched in Israel, but they were searched in Washington, D.C. He also uncovered the fact that a lot of stuff with planes being used, transponders going off, planes that are Egyptian marked are really Israeli planes, that the IDF has full permission to travel unaccompanied within the United States borders. He's very good. He is very good. He has blown up significantly since Charlie's murder, and every show that he has done has been about the case. And if anybody is going to truly solve this case, it is this guy right here. He's a lawyer in Tennessee, Indiana, and Florida, and he is Turning Point USA's worst fucking nightmare. And he is the sweetest guy in the world. But he is going to bring that organization down.
I do want to get into the opening statement because I think it brilliantly, frankly, I was shocked that this pleading even exists, but I think it brilliantly encapsulates.
Project Hail Mary is the #1 movie in the universe. 2 weeks in a row.
What is Grace doing? Having a moment.
It's something truly special that audiences can stand up and cheer for.
What the fuck?
Project Hail Mary, rated PG-13.
I've never seen it do that.
This is your opening statement. A filing was quietly submitted today in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia in the case styled United States versus Brian Cole Jr. A filing like the one filed today ordinarily would go completely unnoticed by nearly everyone except for those with the closest connection to the case. But this is no ordinary case. It is the DC pipe bomber case.
Oh, wow.
It stems from the pipe bomb supposedly placed shortly before the January 6th protest in 2021. And this is no ordinary filing, as this filing provides us with a neatly detailed and conveniently concrete illustration of how federal investigative processes can result in the framing of a patsy while disregarding leads pointing to a government agent. The motion was filed on behalf of the defendant, Brian Cole. It was brought under Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 17C1, governs subpoenas. It requests the early return of subpoena materials. It requests the early return of subpoenas to obtain materials related to the pipe bomb incidents. The filing is stunning. In fact, the filing is so stunning, I expect it to be ignored by basically everyone in power and all of the media lackeys who run cover for them. The filing highlights the government's handling of a woman named Shawnee Kirkhoff. Shawnee Kirkhoff is a former United States Capitol police officer who was on duty at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Shawnee Kirkhoff later left the Capitol Police to take a job with the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. Shawnee Kirkhoff apparently at one point was designated as a person of interest in the pipe bomb investigation.
Interesting.
The FBI conducted concurrent inquiries into both Kirkhoff and Brian Cole, including surveillance. Yet the motion indicates that the evidence developed against Kirkhoff, stunningly, was not pursued, at least not remotely as intensely as the evidence against Brian Cole. And at this point, I want to clarify something. Everything in the opening statement tonight is my opinion. It's based on my review of the motion released today. It is an informed opinion, but it is in fact an opinion. So I'm going to state things as facts, but just understand it's my opinion formed based on what I've read. And I read the whole thing. The scenario outlines at least one way patsies can be framed. The process doesn't require explicit directives from high-level officials or even fabricated evidence. Instead, it operates through routine bureaucratic decisions, classification protocols, selective resource deployment, and the inherent incentives government institutions have to minimize internal exposure. In other words, they want to shield their own employees. The following analysis is going to examine these stages in sequence because this is the way these types of framings can occur. And I anchor it in the facts, and I also anchor it in the legal arguments that are set forth in Cole's motion. The first stage involves the emergence of these parallel leads during the initial investigation. In the pipe bomb case, the FBI developed information identifying Kirkhoff as a potential suspect, and they did so early in the investigation. This included her physical presence and her role on the day in question. And it also includes subsequent data points that warranted closer scrutiny. Simultaneously, investigators assembled a case around Cole. This is an individual with no affiliations to law enforcement or to the intelligence community. So it makes sense that agencies have to allocate finite resources, allocate finite investigative resources when multiple leads surface in a single investigation. The standard protocol allows for prioritization based on particular factors, like the perceived strength of the evidence, the suspect's background, the operational implications of pursuing each avenue. In my opinion, it appears to be common practice that leads involving current or former employees of law enforcement agencies and people in intelligence agencies often receive compartmentalized treatment. For example, the motion states that the surveillance on Kirkhoff proceeded, but the motion also suggests that the resulting materials were not integrated into the investigation, at least not with the same transparency as Brian Cole's activities. This bifurcation creates a foundation for an alternate narrative centered on the outsider. Classification and compartmentalization represents the second key. Government records frequently assign higher security designations when they touch on agency personnel, particularly when it involves transitions between places like the police and the CIA. In the Cole motion, the defense wants access to those FBI records. They want the records on surveillance, they want the interview materials, and they want the related intelligence products. And while this classification serves legitimate national security purposes most of the time, it also necessarily functions to restrict the visibility of that information. Defense counsel in cases like this frequently encounter barriers when you request discovery because the materials may be withheld under claims of privilege. And again, these claims are made unilaterally by the government you're trying to get them from. So the motion released today attempts to compel that production before trial. And it's demonstrating that this could be admissible evidence. We are seeking admissible evidence, they actually say, central to the defense. Specifically, the defense is requesting access to exculpatory material or impeachment material, information about an alternate suspect. And without early intervention, the Patsy's case proceeds And there's a curated set of facts that exclude the patsy. The third stage concerns the management of specific evidentiary tools. Specifically, in this case, we're talking about polygraph examinations. Now, I know that they're not necessarily always admissible or sometimes ever admissible, but they're key facts when you're looking at exculpatory evidence. The filing states that on November 6th, 2025, Kirchhoff took an FBI polygraph. Polygraph was related to her potential involvement in placing the pipe bombs. She provided responses to questions about whether she had placed the pipe bombs. According to the filing released today, and I'm just taking it off the filing, the polygraph examiner documented that she failed. Additionally, the polygraph examiner stated she displayed a very controlled reaction. In other words, this is something the polygraph examiners look for to determine if someone's trying to deceive. The polygraph results serve as an important internal investigative function. But when they're administered to an outsider, a failed polygraph result typically prompts an intense scrutiny. It prompts additional interviews. It warrants additional information. By contrast, the defense motion says that when Kirchhoff failed, none of that happened. It did not trigger any comparable escalation. Instead, the file appears to have been deprioritized despite the failed polygraph. This disparate treatment reflects practical considerations. Confronting a government employee with a failed polygraph carries risks. You might face internal reviews. There could be potential liability for the agency that employed her, maybe even scrutiny that could affect their relationships with other government agencies. The patsy, by contrast, faces none of these. There are no institutional protections for the patsy. Brian Cole's prosecution advanced without even disclosure. And this allows the government to present a streamlined case.
I've never seen it do ads like that before. Very interesting.
Primary target. Investigators start applying standard techniques that strengthen that narrative. They look at cell phone data, financial records, social media activity, witness statements. These elements are aggregated into a coherent story, a coherent theory of guilt. At the same time, everything looking into the insider has diminished. In Cole's case, the motion argues that the government's awareness of Kirchhoff as a person of interest and its surveillance of her coincided with the development of the case against Cole. By the time the formal charges were filed, the public and judicial narrative had kind of coalesced around the patsy. Prosecutors received their discovery packages, shaped by these earlier choices. These emphasize the outsider's vulnerability and omit references to the protected insider. The result is a defendant who appears isolated and culpable. The defendant lacks the network of allies that might otherwise prompt a deeper examination of alternative suspects. The protection of the insider undergirds the entire sequence. When you're evaluating whether to charge an insider, you have to weigh the government's decision, not only on the sufficiency of the evidence against the insider, but also all of the collateral consequences that follow from charging a government official. For example, you have to look at things like congressional oversight hearings, maybe potential impacts to the budget, damages to the very institutions of which the investigators are a part. So pursuing a patsy has none of these risks. It shuts off nearly all of these outcomes. And the Cole motion, the defense motion today, peels back that curtain a little bit. It gives us an opportunity to see this dynamic playing out in real life and in real time. The motion seeks to pierce the compartmentalization before trial and force the consideration of evidence against Kirchhoff at a stage when it can still influence the case. So the motion released today represents at least one limited measure available to a patsy. The filing demonstrates how a defendant can argue that specific identifiable materials like FBI surveillance logs, interview notes, polygraph documentation, or any other interagency communications are relevant and admissible. The legal standard under 17C requires a showing that the subpoenas seek evidence that is admissible. It has to be relevant, and it's not otherwise procurable with reasonable diligence. We don't know how the court will rule on this. Whether it will be resolved in favor of the defendant really depends on the court's willingness to engage all of these factors we've talked about. In many instances, unfortunately, classification claims and government assertions of irrelevance prevail. And believe it or not, this actually happens. And when it does, it typically seals the fate of the patsy. Broader operational patterns designed on their face for good governance and good government, unfortunately, contribute to the outcome. For example, agencies have these protocols for handling sensitive subjects. And these protocols include things like layered review processes before any action can be maintained against an insider. These protocols are designed to protect sources and methods, but they create predictable asymmetries. Think about it. When a patsy's charged, that all works against the patsy. Even if the patsy was charged without a conscious decision to frame a patsy for a crime he didn't commit, the patsy's still likely doomed. Most patsies have limited resources for self-defense, and they don't have the security clearances necessary to challenge things like classification. So once charged, the patsy's pretrial detention and natural incentives to take a plea further reduce the likelihood of a prolonged challenge to the government's narrative. The outcome, of course, is a guilty plea or a guilty verdict, almost always against the patsy. Public reporting focuses on the conviction of the identified defendant, and internal agency records about the insider remain restricted forever. In the Cole matter, the motion is trying to disrupt this. It wants to compel the production of these materials while they can still be used. But even if it's not granted, whether it's granted or not, the filing itself underscores that for most investigators and attorneys working on a case against a patsy, framing the patsy often emerges from just the ordinary functioning of government, the ordinary functioning of investigative bureaucracy. Usually it's not some sort of exceptional misconduct. Let me say it a different way. For most of those people working on the case against the patsy, this is the investigators, the prosecution, it does not require a conspiracy beyond the cumulative effect of routine choices: classify, compartmentalize, prioritize, and resolve. That is, mercifully, on my voice, your opening statement. Guys, this could be a long show. I'm not sick. I don't feel sick at all, but my voice is absolutely toast. That's why I have a toast, a blackberry soda, probiotic kombucha by Hum, not a product placement. All right. I want to jump into tonight.
In the beginning, we had to make a choice about who we were and what we wanted.
I'm your sugar daddy now.
But what we didn't realize was how far we were willing to go.
I'm trying to do a good thing.
Here to a program we did on this very show. Bullet fragment allegedly recovered from Charlie Kirk autopsy inconclusive. Guys, we were 15 days ahead of the news. We were 15 days ahead of everyone else. I'll play a brief clip of that right now. I want to go to totally switch gears. Put Tucker to the side. I want to go to a motion that was recently unsealed in the Tyler Robinson case. And I want to raise a couple of issues that I see in the motion. The first issue is that this motion should have never been sealed in the first place. I think the judge is allowing things, and I just pulled the case file today. The judge has so many filings under seal. It's not proper. It can't be proper. This is inappropriate. It should not be happening. The judge needs to get control over this case. He's letting the lawyers walk all over him. So that's the first thing I want to raise. The second thing is, I really just wanted to play that part again because I pulled the case file again today. The amount of documents under seal in this file are absolutely ludicrous. Guys, we do not live in North Korea. We don't live in North Korea. We don't live in Cuba. We don't live in, I don't know where else, China maybe. Whoever else has secret proceedings against their political opponents or criminals. This should be a public case. This is a routine murder. This is a routine murder. People get charged with murder every day in state court. This is a state court murder case in Utah County, Utah. Why is anything sealed? Who cares? There's too much unknown here. And it's a problem mostly created by the defense, admittedly, but it's becoming a problem because, and it's something we'll play in a little bit, people are taking sides based on evidence they don't have. And they're saying stupid things like, "Ew, Tyler Robinson's 100% guilty. I can tell you that right now. There's no way he didn't do it." You haven't even seen like a third of the legal filings, assuming you're like me and actually open it every now and then and read them. I think I've read most everything in there. Assuming you're like me and every couple of weeks, every week, you open it and see what's been filed in the last week. You haven't even seen everything. And even if you read everything publicly available, you've only seen like a third of the legal filing. So that's problem number one. This should not have anything sealed. This is not a sexual crime where we're protecting the identity of a victim, and I'm all in favor of sealing stuff in that situation. This is not involving children, either children of a violent crime or a sexual crime, or even children, dealing with divorce, whatever. I am all in favor of that. Children don't have the right to put objections on the record. They don't have the right to review evidence. They don't have the right to hire their own attorneys. And so they are basically without protection. So I'm fine sealing all of that. But a 22-year-old kid murders a 31-year-old man. Do you know how many cases are like that pending in America?
All right. We're waiting for Trump. We are waiting for Trump. Gonna watch Trump's national address to the nation. What do you think? What do you guys think he's gonna say? Go. Is it showtime?
Five on your side, breaking news now.
Thank you very much. My fellow Americans, good evening. Let me begin by congratulating the team at NASA
Here we
and
go.
our brave astronauts on the successful launch of Artemis 2. It was quite something. It will be traveling further than any manned rocket has ever flown and will very substantially pass the moon, go around it, and come back home from a distance that has never been done before. It's amazing. They are on the way, and God bless them. These are brave people. We want to God bless those 4 unbelievable astronauts. As we speak this evening, it's been just 1 month since the United States military began Operation Epic Fury, targeting the world's
Epstein
number
Fury.
1 state sponsor of terror, Iran. In these past 4 weeks, our armed forces have delivered swift, decisive, overwhelming victories on the battlefield. Victories like few people have ever seen before.
Oh, shut up.
Tonight, Iran's Navy is gone. Their Air Force is in ruins. Their leaders, most of them terrorist regime they led, are now dead. Their command and control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is being decimated as we speak. Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed, and their weapons, factories, and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left. Never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks. Our enemies are losing in America, as it has been for 5 years under my presidency, is winning, and now winning bigger than ever before. Before discussing this current situation, I also want to thank our troops for the masterful job they did in taking the country of Venezuela in a matter of minutes. That hit was quick, lethal, violent, and respected by everyone all over the world. After rebuilding our military during my first term, we have by far the strongest military anywhere in the world. And now we're working along with Venezuela and are, in a true sense, joint venture partners. We're getting along incredibly well in the production and sale of massive amounts of oil and gas.
That's another
The
lie.
second largest reserves on Earth after the United States of America. We're now totally independent of the Middle East, and yet we are there to help. We don't have to be there. We don't need their oil. We don't need anything they have, but we're there to help our allies. Tonight, I want to provide an update on the tremendous progress our warriors have made in Iran and discuss why Operation Epic Fury is necessary for the safety of America and the security of the free world. From the very first day I announced my campaign for president in 2015, I have vowed that I would never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. This fanatical regime has been chanting death to America, death to Israel for 47 years. Their proxies were behind the murder of 241 Americans in the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut, the slaughter of hundreds of our service members with roadside bombs. They were involved in the attack on the USS Cole, and they carried out the countless other heinous acts, including the just horrible, bloody atrocities of October 7th in Israel, something that most people have never seen anything like it. This murderous regime also recently killed 45,000 of their own people who were protesting in Iran. 45,000 dead. For these terrorists to have nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat. The most violent and thuggish regime on earth would be free to carry out their campaigns of terror, coercion, conquest, and mass murder from behind a nuclear shield. I will never let that happen, and neither should any of our past presidents. This situation has been going on for 47 years and should have been handled long before I arrived in office. I did many things during my 2 terms in office to stop the quest for nuclear weapons by Iran first, and perhaps most importantly, I killed General Qasem Soleimani in my first term. He was an evil genius, brilliant person, a horrible human being, however, the father of the roadside bomb. And he lived just horrible what he did. Iran would have been perhaps in far better, stronger position. Had he lived, we would have had probably a different conversation tonight. But you know what? We'd still be winning and winning big. And then, very importantly, I terminated Barack Hussein Obama's Iran nuclear deal, a disaster. Obama gave them $1.7 billion in cash, green cash. Took it out of banks from Virginia, D.C., and Maryland, all the cash they had. He flew it by airplanes in an attempt to buy their respect and loyalty, but it didn't work. They laughed at our president and went on with their mission to have a nuclear bomb. His Iran deal would have led to a colossal arsenal of massive nuclear weapons for Iran, and they would have had them years ago, and they would have used them. It would have been a different world. There would have been no Middle East and no Israel right now, in my opinion, the opinion of a lot of great experts, had I not terminated that terrible deal. And I was so honored to do it. I was so proud to do it. It was so bad right from the beginning. Essentially, I did what no other president was willing to do. They made mistakes, and I am correcting them. My first preference was always the path of diplomacy, yet the regime continued their relentless quest for nuclear weapons and rejected every attempt at an agreement. For this reason, in June, I ordered a strike on Iran's key nuclear facilities, an Operation Midnight Hammer. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Those beautiful B-2 bombers performed magnificently. We totally obliterated those nuclear sites. The regime then sought to rebuild their nuclear program at a totally different location, making clear they had no intention of abandoning their pursuit of nuclear weapons. They were also rapidly building a vast stockpile of conventional ballistic missiles and would soon have had missiles that could reach the American homeland, Europe, and virtually any other place on Earth. Iran's strategy was so obvious.
I'm calling bullshit
They
on
wanted to
that.
produce as many missiles as possible, and they did, with the longest range possible. And they had some weapons that nobody believed they had. We just learned that out. We took them out. We took them all out so that no one would really dare stop them. And their race for a nuclear bomb, a nuclear weapon like nobody's ever seen before. They were right at the doorstep. For years, everyone has said that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, but in the end, those are just words if you're not willing to take action when the time comes. As I stated in my announcement of Operation Epic Fury, our objectives are very simple and clear. We are systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America or project power outside of their borders. That means eliminating Iran's Navy, which is now absolutely destroyed, hurting their Air Force and their missile program at levels never seen before, and annihilating their defense industrial base. We've done all of it. Their Navy is gone, their Air Force is gone, their missiles are just about used up or beaten. Taken together, these actions will cripple Iran military, crush their ability to support terrorist proxies, and deny them the ability to build a nuclear bomb. Our armed forces have been extraordinary. There's never been anything like it militarily. Everyone is talking about it, and tonight I'm pleased to say that these core strategic objectives are nearing completion. As we celebrate this progress, we think especially of the 13 American warriors who have laid down their lives in this fight to prevent our children from ever having to face a nuclear Iran. Twice this past month, I have traveled to Dover Air Force Base, and it's been something. I wanted to be with those heroes as they return to American soil, and I was with them and their families, their parents, their wives, their husbands. We salute them, and now we must honor them by completing the mission for which they gave their lives. And every single one of the people, their loved ones said, "Please, sir, please finish the job." Every one of them. And we are going to finish the job, and we're going to finish it very fast. We're getting very close. I want to thank our allies in the Middle East, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. They've been great, and we will not let them get hurt or fail in any way, shape, or form. Many Americans have been concerned to see the recent rise in gasoline prices here at home. This short-term increase has been entirely the result of the Iranian regime launching deranged terror attacks against commercial oil tankers in neighboring countries that have nothing to do with the conflict. This is yet more proof that Iran can never be trusted with nuclear weapons. They will use them, and they will use them quickly. It would lead to decades of extortion, economic pain, and instability worse than we can ever imagine. The United States has never been better prepared economically to confront this threat. You all know that. We built the strongest economy in history. We're going through it right now, the strongest in history. In 1 year, we've taken a dead and crippled country. I hate to say that, but we were a dead and crippled country after the last administration and made it the hottest country anywhere in the world by far, with no inflation, record-setting investments coming into the United States, over $18 trillion, and the highest stock market
what's what,
ever,
bud?
with 53 all-time record highs in just 1 year. It all positioned us to get rid of a cancer that has long simmered. It's known as the nuclear Iran, and they didn't know what was coming. They've never imagined it. Remember, because of our Drill Baby Drill program, America has plenty of gas. We have so much gas. Under my leadership, we are #1 producer of oil and gas on the planet, without even discussing the millions of barrels that we're getting from Venezuela. Because of the Trump administration's policies, we produce more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. Think of that, Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. And that number will soon be substantially higher than that. There's no country like us anywhere in the world, and we're in great shape for the future. The United States imports almost no oil through the Hormuz Strait and won't be taking any in the future. We don't need it. We haven't needed it, and we don't need it. We've beaten and completely decimated Iran. They are decimated, both militarily and economically and in every other way. And the countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They must cherish it. They must grab it and cherish it. They can do it easily. We will be helpful, but they should take the lead in protecting the oil that they so desperately depend on. So to those countries that can't get fuel, many of which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, we had to do it ourselves. I have a suggestion. #1, buy oil from the United States of America. We have plenty. We have so much. And #2, build up some delayed courage. Should have done it before. Should have done it with us, as we asked. Go to the Strait and just take it, protect it, use it for yourselves. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done, so it should be easy. And in any event, when this conflict is over, the Strait will open up naturally. It'll just open up naturally. They're going to want to be able to sell oil because that's all they have to try and rebuild. It will resume the flowing, and the gas prices will rapidly come back down. Stock prices will rapidly go back up. They haven't come down very much, frankly. They came down a little bit, but they've had some very good days over the last couple of days. We've done actually much better than I thought, but we had to take that little journey to Iran to get rid of this horrible threat. With our historic tax cuts, where people are just now talking about receiving larger refunds than they ever thought possible, they are getting so much more money than they thought. That's from the great big beautiful bill.
At Vistaprint, we print all the signs that help your small business stand out. We print tabletops that get your brand seen up close, and retractable banners that stop everyone in their tracks. We print A-frames that bring in business.
Never before. It will top the levels that it was a month ago. I've made clear from the beginning of Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. Yet if during this period of time no deal is made, we have our eyes on key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. We have not hit their oil, even though that's the easiest target of all, because it would not give them even a small chance of survival or rebuilding. But we could hit it, and it would be gone, and there's not a thing they could do about it. They have no anti-aircraft equipment. Their radar is 100%
I'm falling asleep. I gotta be at
annihilated.
work at 3:30 in the
We are
morning.
unstoppable as
I'm
a
going to bed
military
after this.
force. The nuclear sites that we obliterated with the B-2 bombers have been hit so hard that it would take months to get near the nuclear dust, and we have it under intense satellite surveillance and control. If we see them make a move, even a move for it, we'll hit them with missiles very hard again. We have all the cards, they have none. It's very important that we keep this conflict in perspective. American involvement in World War I lasted 1 year, 7 months, and 5 days. World War II lasted for 3 years, 8 months, and 25 days. The Korean War lasted for 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days. The Vietnam War lasted for 19 years, 5 months, and 29 days. Iraq went on for 8 years, 8 months, and 28 days. We are in this military operation so powerful, so brilliant against one of the most powerful countries for 32 days. And the country has been eviscerated and essentially is really no longer a threat. They were the bully of the Middle East, but they're the bully no longer. This is a true investment in your children and your grandchildren's future. The whole world is watching, and they can't leave the power, strength, and brilliance. They just can't believe what they're seeing. They leave it to your imagination, but they can't believe what they're seeing, the brilliance of the United States military. Tonight, every American can look forward to a day when we are finally free from the wickedness of Iranian aggression and the specter of nuclear blackmail. Because of the actions we have
Yeah,
taken,
well,
we
as soon
are
as
on the
Trump's
cusp
done.
of ending Iran's sinister threat to America and the world. And I'll tell you, the world is watching. And when we do,
I
when it's
work at
all over,
UPS
the
in
United
Trenton,
States will be
so
safer, stronger,
I
more
gotta be up
prosperous,
at.
and greater than it
I
has
gotta
ever
leave
been
at
before.
2:45.
May
Start
God
at
bless the
3:45. I'll
men
be
and
there till
women
like
of the United
11:30 tomorrow
States
morning.
Armed Forces, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much, and good night.
He said absolutely nothing. What the fuck was that? He said nothing. What a waste of time. No, he didn't. Jesus fucking Christ, man. Our economy is gonna be so fucked. So fucked. Yeah, I'm going to bed. Guys, like, share, subscribe. I hope everybody has a good night. I will be on tomorrow when I get home from work. I don't know what I'm gonna cover. Probably the Charlie Kirk stuff. What else is going on with the war? Yeah. So that's gonna be on the agenda for tomorrow. So, you guys have a good night. I appreciate you guys riding out with me. It means a lot to me. It really means a lot to me. So I appreciate you guys. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to bed. So, Andrew, List, anybody else that's in here, thank you for staying. Have a good night, guys.